Top This year, just when the summer holiday travel season was about to begin, a new outbreak led to a citywide shutdown. Amid low foot traffic and closures, it has been estimated that the local casino industry loses about $20 million a day. 4. Qatar. Despite the recent surge, oil prices have in general suffered from a steady and sometimes dramatic decline since the mid-2010s. The per capita GDP of a Qatari citizen was over $143,222 in 2014, it was just $97,846 a year later, and to this day it remains closer to this level than to its highs. Still, the country's oil, gas and petrochemical reserves are so large, and its population so small, just 2.8 million, that this marvel of ultra-modern architecture, luxury shopping malls, and fine cuisine has managed to top the list of the world's richest nations for 20 years. Yet, with only about 12% of the residents being Qatari nationals, in the initial months of the pandemic, the country, similarly to many other Gulf states, saw COVID-19 spreading especially among low-income migrant workers living in crowded quarters at furious speed. Quarantines, curfews, and lockdowns have been imposed more than once, yet Qatar suffered one of the highest rates of positive cases in the region. Even so, the economy has shown a certain resilience. It contracted by a relatively modest 3.5% in 2020, has grown roughly 1.5% in 2021, and is now projected to rebound to 3.4% amid a rise in gas and oil revenues and the boost from hosting the 2022 World Cup, which will add $1.7 billion to the economy and bring 1.2 million visitors to the country. 3. Ireland. In 2021, forecasts for 2022 are somewhat more conservative, standing at about 5.2%, although most nations can only dream of achieving such a level of growth. A nation of just 5 million inhabitants, Ireland was one of the hardest hit by the 2008 financial crisis. following some politically difficult reform measures like deep cuts to public sector wages and restructuring its banking industry. The island nation regained its fiscal health, boosted its employment rates, and saw its per capita GDP almost double in a short amount of time. According to data from the OECD, the national household per capita disposable income is slightly lower than the overall 38-member country's average. With a considerable gap between the richest and poorest, the top 20% of the population earns almost 5 times as much as the bottom 20%. Most families would balk at the idea that they are wealthy. 2. Singapore. With an estimated net worth of $23 billion, restaurateur Zhang Yong is the richest person living in Singapore. In second place with assets of about $20 billion, to some people's surprise, is Eduardo Saverin, the co-founder of Facebook, who in 2011 left the US with 53 million shares of the company and became a permanent resident of the island nation. Saverin did not choose it just for its urban attractions or natural gateways. Singapore is an affluent fiscal haven where capital gains and dividends are tax-free. How did Singapore become so prosperous? When the city-state became independent in 1965, 1/2 of its population was illiterate. With virtually no natural resources, Singapore pulled itself up by its bootstraps through hard work and smart policy, becoming one of the most business-friendly places in the world. Today, Singapore is a thriving trade, manufacturing, and financial hub. Most importantly, 98% of the adult population is now literate. That is not as saying that it has been immune from the effects of the global downturn. In 2020, the economy plummeted by a record 5.4%, knocking the country into recession for the first time in more than a decade. That decline, however, did not last long. In 2021, the GDP bounced back to 7.6%, while this year's growth should reach about 4%. 1. Luxembourg. Luxembourg uses a large share of its wealth to deliver better housing, healthcare, and education to its people, who by far enjoy the highest standard of living in the Eurozone. Yet, while both the global financial crisis and the pressure from the EU and OECD to reduce banking secrecy have had little impact on the economy, the coronavirus outbreak forced many businesses to close and workers to lose their jobs. Still, Luxembourg has weathered the pandemic better than most of its European neighbors. As a result, in 2021 the Grand Duchy's GDP rebounded from -1.7% in 2020 to 6.8%. This year, however, won't be as rosy. Growth is expected to stay at about 1.7% as the effects of the war in Ukraine, along with higher energy and food prices, are expected to impact business and consumer confidence and consumption. Then again, the country topped the $100,000 mark in per capita GDP in 2014 and has never looked back ever since. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoy, then hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.